What's up, everybody? Welcome back to High Off El Foot. This is your host, Danny, also known as Wanny, and welcome to a podcast that is strictly about the hottest takes of the beautiful game of football. We have reached day 8 of the World Cup, and day 8 included the matches of Japan versus Costa Rica, Belgium versus Morocco, Croatia versus Canada, and the battle of two powerhouses, Spain versus Germany. The first game of day 8 in the World Cup was Costa Rica versus Japan. And we all remember how Costa Rica performed last week very poorly. They were hammered by Spain 7-0. And we all remember that Japan had one of the craziest upset victories last week against Germany when they came back and beat them 2-1. And after those two matches, the door was wide open for Japan to seal their place in the knockout round, especially after seeing Costa Rica collapse against Spain. We all imagined that Japan was coming into this game very motivated and very inspired to get those 3 points. However, Costa Rica had other plans in mind. Although this was a very slow-paced game, Costa Rica's first shot on target in the tournament rocked Japan and put their hopes of progression in peril. Fuller from Costa Rica was able to get a curled shot on target, and the Japanese goalkeeper, who had so many heroic moments last week, attempted to keep it out, but it wasn't enough. And after the goal, Costa Rica's players and fans erupted in delirium. And who knows, there may have also been some cheers of relief in the Germany camp, because if Japan would have won, Germany would have been put under intense pressure to beat Spain later that day, or later today. However, Japan was in the game. They tried their best to try to get a result. And Japan's manager did all the strategizing he could as he took out 2 defenders and replaced them with 2 attack-minded players. And this helped the Japan fan base become hopeful because they were applying a lot of pressure in the second half. And with these 2 attack-minded players, they would probably apply even more pressure. And they probably thought that would pay off. But a very rare Costa Rica counterattack or play led to that curling shot from Fuller, and Costa Rica did the unthinkable and scored their only shot on target in this World Cup and in this game. But, Costa Rica was able to snap a 7-match winless run at the World Cup to move to 3 points, and actually now they have a possibility of making it to the last 16. So it's going to be interesting to see the next match day. And everybody is aware that it's going to be very intense because now we have Spain in first with 4 points and Japan and Costa Rica in second and third. It might be the other way around, but they both have 3 points and Germany is in last place with 1 point. So it's going to be interesting to see how that last match day plays out. I know the Germans want to qualify. If not, it's going to be embarrassing for them. But these other 2 teams in Japan and Costa Rica have nothing to lose. So it's definitely going to be good games to watch. And the group is still extremely tight. It isn't a World Cup without a surprise or without any surprises. Last week we witnessed Argentina lose to Saudi Arabia, and we also witnessed Germany give up their lead as Japan came back and got a victory over them. And today something similar happened. We saw Belgium, who is the second-ranked nation in the world, lose to Morocco. And Morocco did what they had to do. Morocco was hugely impacted by their winger, Hakim Ziyech, who had a mastermind of a performance. And this win for Morocco has become a very famous, important, and memorable win for all of their fans. And this is what the World Cup is about. I remember Mexico beating Germany as the underdogs, and it was just such a euphoric state of mind for all fans. So I'm sure that it's similar for them as well. But their winger, Ziyech, had an amazing performance, and it's crazy to think that he wasn't on the squad, or he wasn't being called up a few months ago until there was a change in management. And perhaps that was because he was underperforming with Chelsea But today he proved that he still has all the talent, skill, and game that he displayed at Ajax. Because when he was at Ajax, he was putting in work. And today his speed was just a huge problem for all the Belgian defenders. And we did mention that, Belgium's defense is aging. And on top of that, their defense might be the weakest link for their whole team. So Ziyech did everything right in order to expose them. And, he was just really brilliant in this match. And he showed a lot of flair, which a lot of wingers must possess, because you need that. You need these players to be daring. You need these players to run at defenders. And Ziyech did just that, and it just unbalanced the whole Belgian defense. But on top of Ziyech, we must give credit to their manager. Their manager has been transforming this national team within the last 2 months. Their new manager for Morocco, actually led a Moroccan club to the African Champions League title last May. So it shows that their manager has experience of managing in Morocco and winning as well. But this manager's substitutions were very impactful. One of the substitutions was actually the player who scored the second goal, and he was able to kill the game. While another substitute was a player that struck the shot that touched Captain Romain Saiz on its way in for the first goal. So it shows that they had immediate impact onto the game. So it demonstrates that this manager knows his players and knows who can make a difference when it is needed. But Morocco drew 0-0 with Croatia in their opening game, and now they beat Belgium 2-0. And this goes to show that Morocco has not conceded a goal in this World Cup. And in fact, they haven't conceded a goal in the 5 matches under their new manager. So, this is a crazy record that they would dearly like to take further into the Qatar tournament. And now they can, after this very, very important result. The next game was Croatia versus Canada. And Canada, who drew with Morocco 0-0 in their first game, was criticized by their own manager, as he admitted that the Croatian side lacked the killer instinct. But boy, did they find that against Canada today. And we all know how much of a fan I am of Canada and their growth and development. But today, Croatia was the better side, and Canada was outplayed. After today's result of 4-1, Croatia now only need a draw in their final game against Belgium in order to guarantee a knockout spot. And Belgium, who is not in the best of forms, could really struggle against Croatia, and Croatia has to take advantage of that. But now, after 2 losses, Canada's exit comes very early, and their elimination from the group stage was confirmed, especially after losing today. And honestly, before the game, it was kind of funny because the Canadian coach actually had some things to say to Croatia, and he said that the Canadian side was going to F Croatia. A little comment, a little bit of banter, but Croatia paid no mind to it, and they decided that they were going to react on the field. However, the early stages of the contest suggested that Canada were the ones who might be taking this game, especially because they recorded the fastest goal in this year's tournament with Alphonso Davies' header. And after Alphonso Davies' header, there was massive celebrations from all Canadians all over the world, because this was their first goal in a World Cup, especially after drawing a blank in their only previous appearance in 1986. It was a great start for their team and a very proud moment for all Canadians, especially for all the fans in the stadium and the people back home. They finally got to celebrate something that they have been waiting a long time for. And The Canadians were carving through the Croatian midfield, especially with Davis's pace and trickery. And honestly, he was causing nightmares for the Croatians. But it was a half of two halves, as Croatia, who was thoroughly outplayed in the early stages, eventually shifted into gear. Croatia drew level in the 36th minute when Ivan Perisic, a growing influence on the left, slid the ball through to Kramaric, and Kramaric just was able to find the back of the net. But this is the type of spark of creativity that Perisic was missing in the first game, and it's great to see him pick that back up. They took the lead 8 minutes later, and then by the halftime, Canada was down. Canada did come close again, but it was just a Jonathan David shot that was superbly tipped over by Livakovic. And yet, their hopes of getting back into the contest were dashed when a curling cross from Perisic on the left was controlled by Kramaric and clinically finished. And then deep into stoppage time, Croatia added the final blow when Orsic broke clear and unselfishly squared a ball to Majer in order to tap it home. So Croatia really displayed that they are ready to compete and that the first game was only a little bump and that they have overcome that. And you definitely saw them pick up the intensity today. But the coach has admitted that they are still far from their ultimate goal and that they have to be ready to face Belgium and they cannot be carried away by euphoria. The Croatian coach also gave credit to Canada, especially after they took a shocking lead after just 68 seconds. And he mentioned that they played a very extraordinary Canada. They were full of energy. But in the end of the day, Croatia was able to stabilize themselves. So this group is now down to Croatia, Morocco, and Belgium. But it's going to be interesting to see how Croatia versus Belgium plays out. And honestly, it might look like Morocco might go through. The last and final game of Day 8 was a clash between two powerhouses, Germany and Spain. And Spain against Germany was a very, very close game. We all know the history and the historical matches between these two. And Spain actually impressed me because after going up 1-0, they didn't resort to defensive tactics or just parking the bus. They did become a little bit more defensive, but they were still pushing the ball forward, fighting for every ball. And I really appreciate that because that is the beauty of football. Sometimes defensive approaches are boring. So hats off to Spain for continuing to try to fight and push forward. However, it may have resulted in the fact that Germany was able to get an equalizer. Perhaps those defensive tactics would have been a lot more helpful for Spain. But this draw gives Germany hope of avoiding another early World Cup exit. We all know that in World Cup 2018, they didn't make it past the group stages. And after losing to Japan, it almost looked like history was going to repeat itself. But this result leaves Germany in last place. And now they're facing a must-win match against Costa Rica in 4 days' time. But this result also means that Spain has not guaranteed their spot in the knockout phase either. But Germany was able to hang on, and Spain did look like the stronger team today. But once you go 1-0 up, the other team becomes more inspired to equalize and play better. And that's what happened. From the start, the Spaniards looked a lot more relaxed. And they were actually cutting through all of Germany with their angled passing. And Dani Olmo almost created an early breakthrough after his shot was palmed onto the bar by Manuel Neuer. And that was a very sick shot. You heard the post, you heard the woodwork, so you know how strong that shot was. But Germany went into this encounter under immense pressure, so they knew that they had to do something in this game in order to not be eliminated. And especially after suffering a shocking defeat to Japan, that just created even more pressure to them. It's because that was a match that they weren't supposed to lose. And the German team thought they had taken an unlikely lead in the 39th when Rudiger powered in a header, but the celebrations were cut short because VAR quickly ruled that it was an offside. But other than that, Spain wasn't really challenged, or the Spanish goalkeeper, Simon, wasn't really challenged until the 56th minute when Kimmich took a shot, but Simon was able to save it. But other than that, and other than the goals, this match was almost back and forth, but it was very, very close, and a lot of the battles were in the midfield. And it just showed that Spain is developing their game, and they seem very good. But it looks like Germany is missing something. Germany doesn't seem the same. They're not the same team that played in 2010 or in 2014. And obviously there's new players, but it seems like their grit and intensity got lost somewhere in that time. But Spain, they're still atop of the group, and now they only need a draw in their last game in order to progress. But a win would send them through to the knockout round in first place. And Germany, who lost 2-1 in their opener against Japan, are now bottom of the table, like we mentioned earlier. So they desperately need to win against Costa Rica if they still want to advance. And honestly, all of their hopes really depend on Japan losing, because if Japan draws, it would come down to goal difference or goals scored by Germany and Japan. But we all know that Costa Rica collapsed against Spain 7-0, and Germany has a lot of talent, and we all know how ruthless they are. So who's to say that Germany won't humiliate Costa Rica? But at the same time, we saw Costa Rica hold it down today against Japan. But Germany has it complicated to qualify, and it's crazy because, they're one of the powerhouses in the world as far as national football. But it's going to be interesting to see how this group plays out. That's all I have for day 8 of the World Cup. It was a great day for Croatia and Morocco. But we are still only on match day 2, and other groups still have to play their second matches. So I'm excited to watch that. If you have any thoughts, opinions, or reactions to this video, make sure to drop that in the comments down below. But that's been all for today. This is Danny from High Off of the Foot. It is World Cup season, baby. Let's get it. Keep enjoying.